any kind folks out there with DBJ. As you notice, you're going to let me preface this with a number of things. First of all, I bet you can hear the sound in the background. Okay. Land is very, very close to nature, which is really going to be what our live stream is going to be about. Wetlands, bogs. Join in. I see some people are being maybe dropped out or whatnot. So just send me a message. So I'm going to continue on and ramble a little bit as we continue this live test broadcast or whatever. So I hope. Yeah, this was a surprise to me. I was hoping that I would be able to get a far stronger signal. I'm hoping I can resolve these issues. But at the very moment, it's very difficult to get the connection issues correct. I'm going to try to go with a hard line maybe tomorrow. But yeah, anyway, come on. I am getting connection issues, guys. But if you can hear in the background, those are probably multiple dozens, if not hundreds, of frogs and insects buzzing and chirping on their way because it's a very damp area in the United States. And currently, I'm about myself, Captain Gothnog, Swamper. Yeah, thanks, Rickard. Says so when it works really well. And unfortunately, let's see if I can get the chat to come up. It's weird. Okay, so the chat, I'm looking at the chat, and it only actually appears when someone actually posts a message, and then it just starts to disappear on me. So now that I'm hoping that my voice at least comes through above the sounds, at least comes through above the sounds of the chirping and such. And this is because and you guys know that I am a contributing writer to Critical Hit Publishing, and I'm about 20,000 words into yet another cinematic environments book known as The Wetlands. Ricketts is calling it out. Um, uh, Garretor. Oh, shoot. Come on back. Come on back. Let's see if it. No, that's not bringing it back to me. Please. Please. Oh, that brings it. Yes. Thank you. Oh, so you're saying a water strider? No, don't chew the microphone. Come up, come back to me. There it is. A water strider plus alligator that runs on the water is scary. Oh, I like that. And flying tongue turtle, a snapping turtle plus a poison dart frog turtle that can send out its tongue to deliver poison attacks. That now a turtle, especially a turtle that's like super slow but super quick would be awesome. But I'm about 20,000 words into the next cinematic books known as The Wetlands. And it's all about swamps and bogs, marshes, moors, that kind of thing, that environment. So I thought, well, you know what? Since I'm here, I'm on vacation. It's the one thing that's like sparking my creativity. So I figured I'd talk about it. And it's we in Critical Hit decided to separate wetlands from rainforests and jungles. So that's going to be a different book because we've written enough information that the two need to be separated, and so that's where the idea is coming from. And of course, I'm on vacation, so and I'm sitting outside, and you can hear the bugs, and I'm sure with the lights on right now, it's 6 in the morning. I'm probably getting a ton of mosquitoes bumping up against the fenced in area that I'm at. So anyway, let's get into it. Since it's Monster Monday, Rickard started us off with snapping turtles and alligators that can like float on the water like water striders stuff. So I thought we talk about some of our favorite things and some of our favorite monsters and modifying them and such. Rickard says the stream flows really well now. have it at lowest quality in about 30 seconds. Let's see, minus 30 seconds from live. Oh, okay. So it must be rendering as I'm going live, it's rendering down. So the chat may be off by 30 seconds to a minute if you guys reconnect back to the beginning of the video. Not really certain. So I love being interacting with you guys, but maybe that might have to be the that may have to be what this video is going to be about. All right, so let's get into our monsters. All right, so we love ourselves a nice dark big old swamp and a bunch of our swamp-like creatures. And the cool thing about swamp is that cool thing, dangerous thing about swamps is that we're able to use both land-based creatures and aquatic creatures and combine them together. And you know me, I love the environment. You get to mix that with it too, where you have the dangers of drowning, being dragged to the mud and dank and dark um, underwater realm, if you would. Uh, oh, you're saying okay? Thank you, Rickard. It works good though. No complaints. All right. So, but my suggestion, if you guys are trying to really log in, if there's really tough connection issues, is to basically go back to the beginning of video, go back about 30 seconds, and let the video commence at that point. And then if you decide to post in a chat, or you have some questions, or you have a great idea, you have a spark of inspiration, put that in. I may get that detail later, but still I'll respond to it no matter what. All right. So one of the great things I love in thinking about wetlands is that we get to use our land-based and our aquatic creatures in any way we want to. Now, of course, we have our traditional creatures, alligators, snakes, maybe some spiders in there, frogs, and all of your humanoid frog type creatures, frogameth, um, bollywogs, that kind of thing. Dead man's 30 seconds to go halfway around the world. Yeah, you make a point on that one, man. You make a point on that one, dead man. So those creatures, we get to pull them out of our monster manual and really throw them out there. But there's also a mystery I feel that comes with wetlands and swamps and fens and bogs and moors. And I think it's a mystery simply because it's so dangerous and so complicated to navigate those regions. And I think that's where we get a lot of the idea of the hags, the witches, the creatures that live deep in the swamp in a home that seems to be warped, a wooden home warped by the constant moisture and the rains and such that inhabit those regions, the humidity that is so high, ooh, humidity that is so high that it just seems to overwhelm the region. And I think it's because hum, hum, um, humanity has a very difficult time, especially in ancient days, of navigating a swamp in any form. Sure, there are people who have lived in swamps, constructed maybe elevated homes above the swampy area, but for the most part, those are areas we avoid as human beings for good reason. Uh, there's no way to run away from your giant alligators. There's no way to run away from poisonous snakes or frogs and things. So it's very easy to imagine those horrors becoming bigger. But I would contest that we can make it even more horrible by adding in things like living oozes, a ton of living plants, and reskinning all the creatures that we already know to adapt them to live in that particular kind of area, even if it means arming our usual goblinoids, like your orcs, your hobgoblins, your goblins, uh, those kind of creatures, and maybe having them have mounts that are able to navigate the area. So, for example, they could be riding on giant frogs or giant through the with it, giving some of your creatures type aquatic movement or at least giving them the ability to avoid the difficult terrain that I guarantee you're going to absolutely add into your gaming. So I think swamps and bogs and fens are a great way to just add some of that horrible that it's conducive to horror, uh, in my opinion, who are going to be panicked when they have to navigate through thigh deep or waist deep or chest deep waters that they're unable to visually see through. And I know I'm flowing into also taking a bunch of, you guys know me. I love some of my favorite creatures like um, doppelgangers, trolls. I love myself some hags and naga. Even you take yourself even manticores or something like that. Just skin them, have them exist in this world where they're they're in a swampy area. Creatures like living plants, like treants or assassin vines and things. There's so much life and so much biodiversity in the swamp. You could even create BFF creatures. So, for example, going back to what Rickard mentioned about the snapping turtle with the poison tongue, you could have all kinds of creatures living on the backs, or even plants living on the backs of, say, the back of a frog or the back of a turtle shell. You could have humanoid creatures wearing like almost like living backpacks of sorts that allow them to blend into the background, but it also is a living, living moss or fungus that they carry on their backs. And by doing like the BFF, I believe you could take two or more creatures. Let's say a giant turtle. On the back of the giant turtle is like living moss or plants. There may be flocks of birds that are able to, or even insect hives that are able to live and breed on the back of the giant turtle. And you could really compound the difficulty of the players confronting these creatures by having like BFF creatures, right? Um, Dead Man says the shambling mound is the OG plant monster. I can imagine walking around with a big gold chain. Yeah. Little stroll. He's the shambling mound's bent to the side, not because the shambling mound has a hump on its back, but just because he wants to be cool. That would be awesome. But yeah, the shambling mound itself might be almost considered like a haven for other creatures. If you follow in this, right? A shambling mound. Oh, gold. Dead Man says golden flowers. There's an image. I was actually going to use it as a thumbnail, but I don't own the image of, and I'm sure you guys can Google it or look for it and post it in the Discord of a dandelion lion. Someone drew a picture of a green lion with a dandelion's mane and dandelion tail. Anyway, I'm describing it terribly, but the artwork is great. You can reskin creatures, turning normally biological. You could take a troll and just make it a plant, or take any number of creatures. Yes, I know there are. I think they're called vegapygmies. There's vegapygmies. I believe there's a. What are the mushroom people? Myconids. Wow, my mind is really stopping on that. But yeah, there's a couple of plant creatures. You could take yourself maybe some of your favorite humanoid creatures. Going back to the troll, um, posting in Discord. Thank you, Rickard. Um, yeah, you could take yourself like a troll and just make it a plant creature. Give it a plant-like origin. Maybe it's vulnerable to what you would perceive plants to have, and you're the game master. You can do whatever the hell you want to in your game. But I think that would be really awesome to possibly even maybe reskin like a mummy or some form of maybe a creature that is has a poison to it or something invasive to the players, such as a basilisk, maybe a Medusa, mummy. I think it's a white. Anyway, there's some of these creatures that are not only have poison, but their touch is a causes a hideous effect to the players, and that could turn the players maybe like some kind of creeping fungus up the players' arm. They're attacked by a creature like a ghoul or something like that in the swamps, and describe it as a fungus that's growing on their bodies that will slowly turn them. I believe like using a Medusa, for example, maybe the Medusa is, instead of a gaze attack, describing it as a gaze attack, maybe it's more of a like a pheromone attack where pollen or something is turns them into like a living bush or tree or fungus or something. Ricker says, let me do some digging and I'll post my Discord. Yeah. Now, I know I'm breaking the rules here, as we always do, because this is Monster Monday, but I have to bring up the fact that swamps and everything related to swamps has a lot to do with the environment. You can't ignore that when it comes to your creatures. Your PCs running through safe, and you're going to have using that to ramp up the tension of what the players are about to confront, describing something flowing past their thighs as they're trying to reach down into the waters, having something bump into someone. The classic Star Wars image of our heroes, Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, Princess Leia, being stuck in the trash compactor, and they feel something. Is it a tentacle? Is it a snake? Something moving around in the depths of the waters. And I think you could really ramp up the tension of that, even if the PCs are aware that there is something there. High perception, investigation, things like that. You can really ramp up the tension by not describing what it really is, but only describing a small part of a larger creature. For example, what's the one that eats human waste or eats waste? Atiogs. It could be an Atiog, but instead of the PCs seeing it, you can describe it little by little until they uncover one or more of these tentacles reaching up in the air. So I really like your descriptive nature flowing, because your PCs they're going to jump to conclusions, right? They're going to assume it's maybe a kraken, an Atiog, a displacer beast if it's got tentacles. Maybe they're going to assume it's a giant snake. And let's not forget, in a swamp, your blast heavy pyromancer wizard is probably going to be at a bit of a disadvantage, at least utilizing some of their abilities underneath the swamp waters. And of course, they're very, very rarely going to be able to light anything on fire, unless, of course, you're going to include like swamp gases and things. So yes, I am diverging away from Monster Monday. Area, I think you could really tell some really good stories about creatures trying to protect their hives or their young ones. Players coming across creatures that are not at full power. What I mean is older creatures, for example, or fleas or wasps or bees or something like that. Maybe they hear the screams of, I don't know, some kind of creature caught in a giant spider's web. So you could kind of create a triangle of conflict where the PCs may come across something in the wilds. Dead Man says trolls are a major threat in swamps. They can just go down and extinguish the flames. You know what? Hey, Dead Man, you bring up a good point, man. I know I'm gonna diverge on this, but I'm bringing this up. The argument about whether player characters are metagaming, right? Oh, would your first level character know that a troll doesn't heal from fire or being burnt by fire or acid, right? Now you can know what's going on. Folklore, they would automatically know. But we tend to forget the fact that the troll themselves are completely aware of that. Why wouldn't the troll take their action to go, who's going to dive down under the water and extinguish the flames? Like, why wouldn't they do that? Or even, could you imagine the anger you'll get from your player characters when the player character is like, oh, it's a troll, I'm going to burn it with my burning hands or fireball, and you as the game master go, well, he decided to cover himself with a thick layer of like wet organic matter. So that first burning thing, you're gonna have to burn off like, I don't know, 30 hit points of vegetation before you hit it, or he gets resistance from your fire because of the fact that he's covered in like vegetation and foliage or something like that. Now you might want to, honestly, that is kind of a FU move. You might want to foreshadow something like that. Still a cool out for you to dive deeper into transversing the swamps. Maybe they come across these creatures and then, foreshadow it. Maybe there's a guide that's like, hey guys, you don't want to fight these creatures in here because they're pretty nasty. Again, we can go with like mixing and matching some of our creatures. Maybe lizard folk and dragonborn, green dragonborn is a possibility. Rickard says the question is, okay, you attack with fire. How did your character learn about that? And yes, exactly. Adds to the character's story, right? It's like maybe the character they learned it in wizard school, or they were children. They could have been children out in the jungle stories. Maybe they were attacked when they were younger and before they became an adventurer, and they passed out, and then all of a sudden they were dragged back to civilization. Maybe someone had a vision, awoke inside of them and gave them you know some kind of knowledge that never happened before, or a cleric was one of their ancestors spoke to them directly, is guiding them along the way, whatever the case may be. And you know what, in your at your table on you, so I've heard the monster manual itself exists. Trolls, ancient dragons have magic. Trolls can be burned by fire or acid. um Vampires are across, sacred ground or whatever, to play with them or modify them a little bit. And something that, like, you guys, Rickard Deadman brought up, is a great idea is to reskin what we already know. So for example, now when viewed from beyond, Deadman says the ancient German trolls weren't abnormally hurt by fire or acid. And you could really pull on that, especially if you want to change up your creatures. And I would give the opportunity to foreshadow some of that, whether they learn it through a guide, someone who's native to the region, or um, that kind of thing. I'm going to move a little bit because I'm getting some sunlight here. Yeah. Put the phone down and I'll give you the wiggly wigs. All right. Rickard says you also have to take into account that in a world with actual trolls, folklore, folk tales on how to, someone could mix in fair folklore, even though some of that folklore may have, some of the folklore may be true while others may not be. So, for example, someone can say that instead of trolls being vulnerable to fire, they may say, "Hey, trolls are afraid of fire." Right? You could twist the folk tale, because a troll, when a torch is thrown into their face, may literally be afraid of the fire as opposed to being vulnerable to the fire. So some people may think that trolls are actually afraid of fire, not necessarily more harmed by it, if that makes sense, if you see where I'm going. And Deadman says there's also the fire troll that is immune to fire as well. Right. Putting the troll in another region where it's not fire that harms them, but it could be any combination of vulnerabilities, if you want to include those into your game. Man, why is the chat not coming up? So anyway, lastly, I do want to say that when using your swamps and such, you could start to create some stories, even with your not just sentient creatures, but your animalistic creatures. For example, maybe the animals are attempting to gather supplies. Like, for example, a hive of ants. A hive of ants could have been dismantling a local village and taking with them anything from food to the harvested crops to innocent people back to their hive. And so a swamp could have so much biodiversity that the players are in the middle, they stumble upon the middle of life proceeding as it normally would. So decomposing animals being, carved up while flies and maggots are decomposing its flesh, or a thick grove of trees inside of its webbing while the PCs stumble upon it. And of course, you have to have yourself some adventurers, or some foolhardy kids or what have you that came from the local village, and maybe they are carrying upon themselves some information. Maybe a local kingdom sent emissaries to messages or maps or magic items and things of that nature, and they're still stuck there. Also, you could create a swamp out of an, so they've had probably a minimum of 5 days. You could create a swamp where one didn't exist before. For example, let's say you get yourself your castle that's been abandoned because the king and the people there was a war in the past, and it's half destroyed or something. And maybe the local rains have flooded the moat around the castle, and it's just waterlogged and no one's keeping it up. There's no water flow, and all of a sudden a swampy area starts to exist in an area that normally hasn't had it. An area that normally hasn't had it. Maybe there's a mountain valley. The dwarves live up in the mountains, and people go through this mountain valley to get to the other side of the mountain ridge. But uh, the warmer weather and the melted caps of the mountains, plus rains and things, may have flooded the valley, and now it's just become this nasty swamp. So the dwarves can't get through. The people on either side of this mountain valley can't get through, and that's the one thing that's holding everyone back. Reconnect, guys. Anyway, I'm going to end the stream here. No, you guys know I normally go an hour, but I'm going to sign off here. I know the connection issues are bothering people anyway as well, so I apologize for that. But thank you very much for participating. If you can, there we go. I'm DBJ. I really appreciate you guys just hanging in there with me. I probably tomorrow will try to hardline this so we won't have these same connection issues. But again, I thought I'd try something different and new. And since I'm on holiday, I thought that this would just some decorum here. Save face a little. DBJ, thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm going to sign off here at the 30, 37, 38-minute mark. I want to thank you guys so much. And anyway, guys, have a great day. Tomorrow, we're going to continue our talk with tips and tricks and world building and all that kind of stuff, using ourselves some wetlands.